Hey, what's up YouTube? Goratha here. Today I want to talk about my build for Path of Exile 2. So the plans before the league were to go Flame Blast, Bleed Ignite, Blood Mage. I'm currently still playing a Blood Mage, and I'm using Bleed. But my build is not Flame Blast. Now, let me explain why. So as I was playing the game, I wanted to level up fast, and I was trying out a bunch of combinations of skills. And Flame Blast is really high level. It's like level 50 or something. By the time I got to level 50, I actually found a build and a playstyle that I actually really enjoyed and kind of want to explore further. And yeah, I'm going to talk about that. So I am playing Frostwall, Fireball, Castwall Freeze, Cast on Frozen, whatever you want to call it, Comet. So this build is really interesting. It works by casting a Frostwall, or multiple Frostwalls, and then casting our Fireball, which is linked to multiple projectiles, aka Scattershot and Unleash. And basically what happens is we shoot the fireballs into the Frostwalls and they all explode. Now in POE2, the Frostwalls actually do a bunch of damage. I'm not sure if it shows here exactly how much damage they do, but they overlap a lot and they do 200 top and cold damage. These can crit, they can freeze, they do everything. I have it linked to Spell Cascade and Fortress. So this will basically make a bunch of extra Frostwalls, and they all stack up on top of each other. And the way Fireball works is it shoots into the target, explodes, creating a nova of smaller fireballs. Yeah, basically this is a bunch of shotgunning and a bunch of freeze, fire, crazy explosions going on. This build is insanely fun to play, and that's not the best part about it. The best part about it actually is how it actually plays within the game itself. So I guess I'll show you guys some of the gameplay here. I basically throw out my Frostwall, and sometimes it does enough damage to proc my Comet automatically. But yeah, the cast on Freeze Comet just goes crazy. This build is insane. It feels so good to play. There's so many explosions going on. Yeah, I feel like I'm playing POE1 honestly with this build. Let's talk about the tree and the gyms especially. So first off, you get Fireball at around level 31, I believe. And you get it before you get Frostwall or Comet. Actually, you might get Frostwall at the same time you get Fireball. These might be the same time. So I think you might be able to use Frostwall, Fireball right away at the same time. That would be pretty okay as well. You won't be having the cast and freeze set up yet. But Fireball, Frostwall was pretty solid on its own. I didn't really use it right away, so I don't know how good it is at like 31. But anyways, what I would do is I would run Spell Cascade and Fortress. I'm currently running Icicle as well. I'll explain why in a second. So basically, what you want to have happen is you want the Frostwalls to get one-shot by the Fireballs. So you want the Frostwalls to actually have as low HP as possible, and you want the Fireballs to have as high damage as possible. Now the build is actually mostly cold damage. The Frostwalls and the Comet is doing most of the damage, but it still is important to have good fire damage. With that in mind, on the tree, I'm basically expecting to crit and some cold damage at the top here. Climate change here for some coldest extra fire against frozen enemies. The tree is basically mostly cold damage. And then we have the reduced ice crystal life. This wasn't really important until I'm like 50 plus. Didn't really think I needed this for a long time. But if you're not one-shotting, you can get this earlier. This is very, very good to one-shot the Frostwalls. Anyways, early on, I leveled by sucking into the spell damage, minion damage, spell damage. These are hybrid nodes. I ran Raging Spirits as my first Spirit Gem with Spark Flame Wall. And that pretty much carried me until the end of Act 2. And this is around the time you'll actually get these two setups. I found that early on, freeze skills were actually really good at bossing. A bit low damage, but freezing bosses is really strong. So if you could throw in like a Frost Bomb or something and try to freeze bosses at the same time, that's pretty strong. I still am actually using Frost Bomb now, but I think I'm going to drop it soon. I'll explain why in a second. Anyways, early on, I actually realized that you need some attributes. So most likely, you might be needing to path outside instead. Just in case you find like a strength or dex piece of gear that's really good, you might need to take these nades early. And later on, you can spec through the crit and the cast speed. Something to keep in mind. At normal lab, you might want to consider not taking Stingomancy. Now, initially before the league, I thought this node would just be an upside, but it is actually a pretty big downside. And there was a bug going on when I was actually playing where I couldn't even get the overflow. I didn't realize until well into the game that every time I weapon swapped, I was losing my Ascendancy node, basically. I guess I can show you how the overflow works real quick in-game. The overflow, basically when you kill monsters or you crit, you spawn these orbs. They heal you, and this is at the cost of every spell you have costs extra life, basically. Now, as you can see, the overflow gives you more than max life, and it stacks up pretty fast. The downside is all your spells cost a lot of life. However, when I was leveling, this was bugged, and every time I weapon swapped, I would lose all this overflow instantly. So I'm not quite sure how good or bad this is early on, necessarily. You could, however, just not take this first lab right away. Do lab later, or do lab and just take the first node, whenever you have more recovery. I only have, like, life recoup on the tree. I have some life regen on gear, and I have some life on kill on gear. But yeah, I don't really have too much. It's kind of okay-ish right now. The only source of recovery I have is vitality on the life remnants itself. Vitality will cause it to reserve an extra 20 spirit. Normally it doesn't have any reservation. Vitality clarity was really good though. As soon as I dropped the rating spirits, I linked it to this instead. And there's, yeah, this is 30 spirit basically. Anyways, as soon as I got to 31, I ran Fireball, Unleash, Scattershot, which is basically the new LMP, and Inspiration whenever I have 4-link. Yeah, the 4-link isn't really required. Less cost is really, really nice though for quality of life. It makes this node a lot less annoying for your main skill. Yeah, I would just run this 3-link here. You can also run Ember Fusillade before you get 31 with the same setup, and it is actually okay. Before I use Unleash Scattershot though, I thought Ember Fusillade was pretty bad. There's something to keep in mind with that setup. Frostwall. So like I mentioned earlier, you want Cascade and Fortress. I'll show you exactly what they do in game. So normally you have a wall here and a line, and what happens is it's not very stacked up. So you don't really have that many explosions. It's kind of hard to hit monsters. So you add Fortress. This takes it into a circle. This will stack up the walls a lot more. You have a lot more explosions. And then you take it a step further and add Spell Cascade in. This will spawn more walls. Like, basically Spell Echo kind of, in a way. And it just spawns like a big circle of walls. So lots of explosions, lots of overlapping for your fireballs. Lots of damage, lots of freezes. I am planning on maybe going cast and crit eventually as well with this build. Take use of my Ascendancy nodes. Yeah, so far this app's been pretty strong. Really, really strong. Cast on Freeze, like I said, is using Comet. This was really endgame. I'm not quite sure exactly when you get Cast on Freeze, but it's pretty... Well, it says level 36 requirement here. It's probably around somewhere in Act 3. This is very strong. You'll probably get Cast on Freeze before Comet, and then I guess I recommend running maybe a Frostwall Cast on Freeze. Something like that would be pretty good. It won't be as good as Comet, but it'll be pretty strong still. I think it's Frostwall. I use Frostwall the entire game. I use Fast Forward, which is less skill effect duration, so it goes off faster. With Glaciation, just for more freeze build-up. Early on, you can do AoE, faster casting, aka Arcane Tempo. Lots of things you can link to Frostbomb. And I probably won't be using it that much longer. I might use it just because of extra gem slots, but it's not really required for the exposure anymore because I'm now using Eye of Winter for exposure. Eye of Winter, this will apply exposure with the support gem. And it applies a debuff that stacks up to 10 times. That gives me 10 base crit. So bosses I have really high crit chance, and can just blow up bosses really fast. Lots of crit damage, explosions, AoE, overlaps. Freeze, fire, explosions. This build's insane. I really don't know what to say about it. This is kind of the quick rundown on the skills. I will obviously post whenever we get like the build guide stuff set up, I'll make some build guide stuff for you guys, and I'll link it in the YouTube description. But that's why I'm making it in game right now, so I can kind of explain everything, and then we'll have like the PUB type stuff going later. I'll make sure I edit the video later as well. Anyways, back to the tree. So early on, you could take Recoup if you want. Recoup was pretty solid. This will basically allow you to run around on bosses and recover life back slowly. It's over 8 seconds, so it's not the best, but it's okay. You can take Pliable Flesh later on for faster recoup. And yeah, so I rushed, early on, actually rushed these spell damage nodes. Spell damage applies to all of our damage, so I felt like this is something that was pretty good early on. And it was. These are really good nodes. I just dropped them because I ran out points for what I wanted. Specifically for the reduced ice crystal stuff. This is where I dropped these notes for. I actually took the top side last. The freeze bulb helps a lot with cast on freeze, especially, and bosses get frozen a lot more. And just extra damage. Keep in mind, the more cold skills you get, the higher HP Frostwalls have. That's why I started to need like reduced ice crystal life and reduced icicle life. Yeah, if you don't need this icicle life thing, you can actually run like Conquer Effect on this instead and get a bunch of damage. So this, whenever you see yourself not one-shotting the Frostwalls, that's when you need to reduce the Frostwall HP basically. Now, there's one thing to keep in mind. You can block yourself pretty easily, so it's also important to, if you do block yourself, just make sure you don't panic and you use your fireball right away. It'll show you visually on the screen that you can't walk through them, but you can actually walk through them. Keep that in mind. And yeah, I did notice right now I'm having some issues with mana and life recovery, so I'm going to try to fix that. The build costs a lot of mana. You're spamming comets. It costs a ridiculous amount of mana. Blood Magic is maybe an option endgame. I don't really like it though, because you don't make use of your int, and it gets a lot of mana. So I'll probably end up trying to actually get a bunch of mana regen nodes, and maybe some of these pseudo mind over matter nodes over here. There's a bunch on the tree. Probably like up to 20 or 30% even on the tree, so I don't know exactly where they're at on the side, but there's some over here as well. And yeah, I'm not going to take actual mind over matter, but some of those nodes would help defensively if I spec more into mana, and it should solve the recovery stuff too. Also more crit. Crit's very good. Our Ascendancy. Endgame, we're going to stack life and get a bunch of crit damage. A lot of you are asking me if you can play this as Stormweaver or Invoker, and yeah, honestly, it might be better as Stormweaver or Invoker. I'm not sure. I'm really curious and excited to try this out with stacking life though. Crimson Power Endgame. Stacking of Gore Spike. The Overflow will actually give you extra bonus life. So theoretically, you could go up to like 12,000 life if you consider the Overflow. And yeah, that's like 300 crit multi. So I can see that being really strong and really good defensively, especially with the Progenesis node. So I can see advantages to being Blood Mage. Blood Mage is a little bit annoying with the life early on. Like the life costs can make bosses harder. Overall, yeah, the Blood Mage is a lot harder early on. I'm hoping it scales into the endgame and is just better endgame class. But if you want to have an easy time, Stormweaver might be the way to go. And yeah, I took these crit nodes. Probably would recommend taking these as soon as possible. The reason for that is when you crit monsters, the life remnants actually gives you life remnants on bosses. And yeah, it'll help with your sustain on bosses basically. So crit's pretty good. Even if it's not great for damage early on, it's great for sustain. And that's pretty much everything I want to talk about. These are just like some elemental damage nodes. You can take these as soon as you notice yourself igniting and freezing a lot. Not really too much to say about that. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I will make like the POB type content whenever we get access to the tools and stuff like that. I'll definitely post it in the description below. I figured I'd show you guys a video in game, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the content. I'll be streaming on Twitch all week, 24/7. Stop by if you want to check out the stream. Anyways, see ya.